digital photography, portrait retouching. The first thing you're going to do when opening Photoshop is make sure that your workspace is not on Essentials, but it's on Photography. And see how that changes the menu over here? These are the tools you're going to need for photography. Let's open a picture. I'll get that one open. Okay, here. Go to the Move tool. If I hit Command 0, it will fit it to frame. So I'm not going to worry about cropping this until the end. The first thing I'm going to do is copy the background layer, drag it down to the plus sign. Now I have a copy. Right-click and convert to Smart Object. By doing that, it means I can go back into this and readjust it. So now that this is a smart object, I go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter, and it will open this dialog box. If you're shooting with a professional camera that is capturing images in camera raw format, this window will open up when you open your image, and you won't have to go through the previous steps. Okay, so this is very powerful. We can adjust the exposure and the temperature. Those are the first things I'm going to address. If this was skewing a little cool, a little blue, I'm not talking about the background. I'm just looking at skin texture or skin color and clothing, not the background. If it was a little cool, a little blue, I can warm it up. If it was a little warm, meaning a little yellow, I could cool it off. One cool trick, if someone has a lot of red, like I've got some little red in the cheeks, if I cool the temperature off just a little bit, and then go down here to saturation and bring the saturation back up, it brings the red back. So I haven't gotten rid of the red by cooling it down. I just mellowed it out, and then bringing the saturation back up brings that red back into the face just a little more evenly. This whole picture tends to skew cool. The exposure is good, but if it was a little dark, you could increase the exposure. If it was a little too bright, you could decrease the exposure. And look how bright this is. You want this picture to be nice and bright. I'm going to leave contrast alone because highlights, shadows, whites, and black are contrast. Contrast will shift things, but evenly. And it's tempting to use, but we might want to darken the shadows more than we lighten the highlights, whereas contrast would do both to equal amounts. Whites and blacks. White is the extreme bright end of the highlights. Black is the extreme dark end of the shadows. And there's a cool trick with this. If I hold down the Alt key, or Option on Mac, I'm holding down the Alt key, and I press down my mouse key and move the white slider until I just see, here I'm going to go too far, I just see a couple blue dots. That means those points are almost pure white. Same with the black. Hold down the Alt key or Option on Mac, and I'm going to go left and try and darken this up until I see some black lines. This is where we were. This is where we are. That means I have a true, really super dark shadow here. And I'm going to leave everything else alone. Hit OK. Let's zoom in a little bit. Here's our original image. Here's where we are now. Our original image. Here's where we are now. It's probably a little too bright there, but yeah, it's a little too bright. So what I can do is go down to Camera Raw Filter, double click this, and the dialog box comes in again. And I think I just need to zero out the exposure. Yeah. Okay. Now I want to bring that back up a little bit. Okay, there we go. So that's the first major step with the camera raw filter.